Cricket games are finally making a comeback after a few years where not one major developer wanted to do anything with the gentleman's game. Big Studios took over and made some really cool games. In this video, I'm going to compare 4 of their latest titles in various areas like batting systems, bowling mechanics, career mode, graphics, even commentary and more, to help you decide the game that is right for you if you're looking to pick one up or if you just want to know about these games and have a fun time. Sit back, relax and join me as we try to find out the best cricket game. Batting in Cricket 22 is a better version of Ashes 17. The slower pace has returned, being defensive is enjoyable once again, and on top of that, the game has learned some lessons from 19. Animations are the best they have ever been in a cricket game, but it's not perfect, in fact not even close. Some shots are still way too underpowered. The cut is such an important shot in the sport, but scoring runs with the normal, not late cuts or lofted variations is literally impossible here. I mean, most of the time if you're lucky you might sneak in a couple of runs. Straight drives is still not quite there, which is weird because on drives, off drives and even cover drives look great and are extremely satisfying to execute. But in the end, batting in Cricket 22 isn't all that different from previous titles. It feels very much the same, improved but very much the same. Cricket 19 is a little weird. Batting animations that were already there haven't been improved all that much. Some shots are still awkward, but that's just a small portion. 90% of the animations are really well done. Issues in previous games have returned. Once again, shots along the ground feel weak. You can get out even when you do everything right. Batting is also considerably easier here. So if you found previous games to be too challenging, then 19 might be perfect for you. There are still some quirks here that are extremely frustrating, like playing a cut against spin will almost always lead to a wicket. No matter how short and wide the ball is, it's never a safe shot. Whereas lofted shots, which should be riskier, are much easier to execute. I had the most amount of fun playing against spin. It's very realistic, playing with the spin is safe, playing against it is risky. These things appeal to fans of the sport of cricket because you can play out real life tactics. I really love batting in Ashes 17. It has the gritty mechanics from DBC 17 and is incredibly polished and improved on top of that. Big Studios have added some more animations, but the shots that were already there look better too. The front foot defense against spin, for example, looks so beautiful and is so satisfying to execute. I must say, playing a marathon innings in a test match has never felt more satisfying. Leaving and defending are actually fun. If you have always felt cricket games forced you and rewarded you for being aggressive all the time, Ashes 17 is completely different. Being defensive is cool here. Shots played along the ground have a powerful feel, ball physics have improved, inside, outside, leading edges play out accurately, thick and thin edges sound different, and 90% of the time the ball does obey the laws of physics. But the room for improvement is still there. There are some shots that still look weird, batsmen playing lofted flicks look awkward, but mostly everything does feel improved. The sound of leather hitting wood when you connect properly, for example. Batting is also more consistent. What I mean is that when you play the right shot with perfect timing and footwork, you will get results accordingly. Another addition to batting is the inclusion of a few more stances. As I said, it is only a few, but batting with Steve Smith stance is a treat. Stances are lifelike, at least most of them. Maybe one day every single player in the game will have their own stance. Batting is very much simulation based, more so than any other cricket title. It feels very broadcasty, so it can be a little slow for some players. Ashes cricket also brought back a more traditional control scheme, so first time players can pick up the game almost instantly. Batting in DBC 17 is very challenging, but you can score all around the ground, giving you the 360-degree experience. We all remember how frustrating it was in previous cricket titles when no matter what you did or how hard you tried, you could never hit the ball to certain parts of the ground. That isn't a problem anymore. Not only can you hit the ball to all corners, but there are variations within every shot themselves that have their own trajectory and animations. So naturally the batting system here takes time to master. Different types of bowlers pose different problems. Fast bowlers trouble you with different things when compared to spinners. It's not as simple as playing the ball early if it's a pace bowler or waiting on the ball if it's a spinner. Pacers can trouble you with pace, sure, but they can also swing the ball to cartoonish degrees, while spinners have flight, drift, spin and more at their disposal to deceive you. And it's not just the bowlers. Pitches have a major impact too. Facing pacers on a green track is a challenge. It's almost impossible to gauge the amount of spin when playing on dry wickets. Playing on the hardest difficulty can make you cry. But when you do achieve something like scoring a century, it is very satisfying. Animations are okay, but they are infinitely better in later games. Some shots have awkward techniques. The problem with the leg land started here. Another problem that started here is that shots along the ground are criminally unrewarding. Hitting boundaries with grounded shots is next to impossible. A perfect drive should fetch 4 runs, not a shot where the ball barely crosses the 30-yard circle. Overall, some shots were overpowered while others weren't rewarding or got you out. The reverse sweep is a safer shot than the cut here, which doesn't make any sense. With all that being said, I still feel the batting system in Cricket 22 is the best in any cricket game. Cricket 22's bowling system is very refined. Developers haven't changed a lot over the years. The core from DBC 17 has pretty much remained the same, and Cricket 22 follows that trend as well. Few additions like the aftertouch option have been added, but it isn't a major change by any stretch of the imagination. But even after saying all that, I did have a boatload of fun bowling in Cricket 22. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the bowling system itself, but more to do with how AI batsmen play. They are smarter, you can't trick them anymore. If you're predictable, you will get hit, while if you form good plans and execute them properly, you will get satisfying results. The slip cordon feels useful. Even LBWs and bowls occur more frequently, whereas in previous games, catches in front of the wicket was the more popular form of dismissal. So there are a lot of little additions here and there in Cricket 22. Bowling in Cricket 19 is frustrating. I mean very frustrating. Batsmen will flick the ball over fine leg to a ball that pitches on the wide line, and it's not like a scoop where the batsman goes across, but the AI batsman will stand in place and flick it for 6, beating every law of physics and making no sense. That is just one instance of how frustrating bowling can be. The bowling system itself is almost a carbon copy of its prequels, but there's just a lack of things making sense. Although the bowling system here is a lot smoother. Inclusion of new bowling actions are exciting the first time you play. I mean, after 15 years, Lasith Malinga's action has made its way to a game. That is exciting. Field setting, weather conditions, pitch types all have an impact on the game, which definitely adds to the realism. Bowling in Don Bradman Cricket 17 is probably the most fun you'll have as a bowler in a cricket game, at least up until that point. There are many choices to choose from. It makes the least fun part of cricket for the majority. Of course, some love bowling more, but batting is what attracts the majority. Even if you don't like bowling one bit, I think you'll have fun with the bowling system in place here. You can beat the batsman with pace, swing, spin, flight, drift and a lot of other variations as well, which was almost never the case with previous games. In most titles, batsmen were either too good and it was impossible to deceive them, or there were certain tricks where if you pitch the ball in certain parts of the wicket, you'll get the batsman out 9 times out of 10. You won't find that to be a problem here. It's brutally challenging, but equally rewarding if you're skilled and consistent. An almost perfect balance of risk and reward. The game has various pitch types that suit pacers, spinners, or even the batsmen. Forming tactics with that in mind is a nice little challenge in itself. This has been the case in many cricket games, but not to this degree. The pitch type affects the game more than you think. You can swing the ball to an absurd degree like James Anderson on a green track, On a dry, worn-out 5th day wicket, you can recreate the ball of the century if you're lucky, but on a batting track, you will get smacked around the park, especially if you're facing up against a good batting unit. All these amazing gameplay mechanics make the bowling in DBC 17 a wonderful experience. You'll need some time to get used to the various mechanics in place, but once you do, it's a lot of fun. Bowling in Ashes 17 is very similar to DBC 17. They are so similar, it's almost impossible to pick out differences. Ashes 17 has a more accessible control scheme, but unlike Don Bradman, here you can bowl one great delivery after the next for a while and not succeed at all, which is accurate to real life, but it's also frustrating at times. Because of this very reason, I had more fun bowling in DBC 17. But in terms of animations, the run-up, bowling actions all look and run better. The game really made slip fielders feel important. In previous games, the slip cordon was pretty much useless, but batsmen here edged the ball a lot, and I really mean a lot. But if you decide to go short, then you won't have nearly the same amount of success. Batsmen are not the least bit uncomfortable against bouncers, making them very underpowered. So you end up bowling full most of the time to get any significant results, but when you do get those results, it is extremely satisfying. In my opinion, Cricket 22 and Ashes 17 have bowling systems neck and neck with each other, but if I had to go with one, I'd go with Cricket 22 for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. Cricket 22 is the first and only cricket game for PS5 and Xbox Series X, so it should be the best looking game, right? Maybe, but it isn't a clear winner by any means at all. Since Big Ant Studios have tried so many different visual styles, which is unlike any other franchise. For example, FIFA games have had the same style for years, but Cricket 19 feels different to 22. 22 and Ashes 17 feel similar. DBC 17 feels completely different than the rest. So it is kind of tough to compare. Anyway, Cricket 22 is a game that is made to look as realistic and as accurate to real life as possible. Toned down colors from 19, shadows and the lighting especially is very well done. These games have always looked great during night games. Developers somehow have never had a problem when it comes to night lighting. Lights bouncing off helmets, the ground looks beautiful, players look nice, at least for the most part. But day games have never even been close to looking great. It's usually been downright average or worse. 22 is a huge improvement in this area. Shadows and the basic lighting itself has been nailed down. The game will remind you a lot of Ashes 2017. They have very similar visual styles, from the gritty lighting to the way player models look. The series went back to a realistic simulation style art design after experimenting a more arcadey design with Cricket 19, where the game did look great, but realism wasn't the focus. As I said, Cricket 19 has a different art style. It basically looks like a game. I do prefer Ashes 17 style a little more, but Cricket 19 is actually a really good looking game. It's just that some basic things have been messed up, resulting in people thinking it's bad visually. Player models are terribly sized, looking way too small in relation to the ground. The game does look a little cartoony, which isn't a bad thing at all, but it might turn some people off. It's the effect of the Big Bash game released in 2018, which went for a full-on arcade look. 19 is bright, colorful, and with a high saturation level, the game just pops out. Lighting is as good as previous entries. I wouldn't say it's downright better, but sometimes it does look better. Shadows, for example, are no longer blurry, dark spots on the ground, rather sharp, crisp, accurate effects. The size of player models are problematic, but the detail on the models is actually quite impressive. Hair, eyes, facial hair all look more natural instead of looking like painted on structures. Grounds are beautiful and are actually accurate to real life, with lifelike dimensions, stands, structures, and sometimes even grass patterns. Pitches are very detailed, cracks and rough areas popping out as you play through a test match. Textures are believable, maybe they could try to play with dust effects in future games, but 19 is no doubt solid in the graphics department. Don Bradman Cricket 17 looks stunning when the lights are on, but when you play a day game, it looks below average. The lighting engine here looks and feels like it's about 10 years old. Player models look okay when compared to other areas, but they could be so much better. Faces either have low quality textures or none at all. Players look like they're wearing badly made wigs or have eyes that look deader than dinosaurs. I mean, dolls have more life in their eyes. Grounds aren't anything special, they look generic. People sitting in those stadiums, believe it or not, look even worse, looking like cardboard boxes at their best or colors on a wall at their worst. Shadows are good enough, but the game lacks polish that even previous games like DBC 14 had. As I said, night games is where the game looks its best. If you want to experience the game at its best visually, stay far away from day games. Kits look average too, bats, pads, gloves all look like they're made of clay. Helmets do look good at times. Pitches look different depending on the time of day, they deteriorate accurately, but they underdeliver massively when it comes to lighting and textures. Ashes Cricket 2017 was a major improvement from DBC 17. Player models have come from potato faces to lifelike, licensed players have great likenesses. The game for the first time in Big Ant Studios history has fully licensed England and Australian teams, both men and women. As I said, player likeness is great, but it's just the two teams that have licensed players, so the game looks good no matter the time of day because of how improved the lighting is. Textures have come a long way too, and it's not just player models. Grounds look better, stadiums look good, crowds look better. People don't look completely like cardboard boxes, rather they look and act like human beings, at least a little. Stumps have LEDs lighting off every time the bails are dislodged, which adds to how good the game looks. Shadows are sharper, jerseys are designed better. The biggest improvement here is definitely textures. Texture pop-ins are very rare. Visually, Big Ant Studios have improved a great deal considering DBC 17 and Ashes 17 came out within a year and a half. When you go with the broadcast camera, you'll sometimes feel like you're watching an actual match on your television. Well, I think Cricket 22 is the winner once again, but not by all that much. Ashes 17 and Cricket 19 still give 22 some competition, but just going from previous generation of consoles to the next makes a huge difference. On the base Xbox One, the difference is even smaller, but even then 22 does look better. Don Bradman Cricket 17 didn't go with professional commentators. This is a good thing in my book. Hiring unknown voice actors for commentary means they'll spend more time recording lines and we'll have more to listen to instead of the same repetitive lines over and over again. DBC 17 does this to an extent. Commentary isn't terrible, but it's not totally great either. But it seems they have put in some decent time voice recording because you don't end up hearing the same 10 lines for 10 minutes straight. It does get repetitive, but it takes much longer. It's not even close to the level of repetitiveness of previous games. And also, commentators make sense all the time. No more brain dead commentary where commentators will comment nonsense like played in the offside when the batsman flicks the ball to mid-wicket. This does happen, but it's very rare. Voice actors are actually good, showing emotion, they sound excited, which doesn't make it obvious that they're just reading lines of a sheet. I loved Ashes 2009's commentary and I loved DBC 17's commentary just as much. Maybe a few more hours of recording and it would have truly been world class. We had high hopes for Ashes 17's commentary because after some time awesome real life commentators were going to do the job, Michael Slater for example, but in the end it was a disappointment. To say commentary was bad would be an understatement. First off, it seems like they came in for a day or two and that's just it. It gets repetitive so fast, it's actually incredible. On top of that, despite hiring commentators who are really good at their job, They seem downright bored here. Excitement is nowhere to be found, so not only are you hearing the same line over and over again, whatever lines you are hearing have no energy or passion behind them. Another nice addition to the frustration is the coding. About 25% of the time, commentators will be flat out wrong or make no sense at all. Did you play and miss a ball? Well, Michael will praise you for your good leap. Playing the game for more than a few hours at a time is virtually impossible, not because gameplay is bad, but commentary is. Cricket 19 once again went with professional commentators Mel Jones and Michael Slater. It does seem like they spent a little more time voice acting. It's slightly less repetitive, but since some of these recordings were carried over from previous games, it does start feeling stale very fast. There might be more lines of commentary, but the actual delivery is, believe it or not, more robotic than Ashes 17. They legit sound like they're about to go to sleep at any moment. But they seem to have done something right with coding. Commentators make sense most of the time, which does make hearing those monotone lines a little more bearable. It's probably best if they take real life commentary and try to incorporate it, or hire good voice actors that can do a better job for future releases. Cricket 22 has a dream team of commentators: Michael Atherton, Ian Healy, Mel Jones, Alison Mitchell and David Gower. And unlike previous games where the more popular the commentator, the more monotone they sounded, here everyone sounds excited and they even manage to get you thrilled. Also, because of the large number of new pieces of commentary that has been added here, it does take a long time to get repetitive. But in the end, no matter what, commentary in sports games will get repetitive, unless of course developers start releasing patches every month. But 22 is good enough in the commentary department, but I still prefer DBC 17 more. Cricket 22's career mode is very ambitious. Big Ant Studios have gone for a well-rounded career mode that we have seen and played through in games like NBA, FIFA or even UFC games to a lesser degree, where it's not just match after match but meaningful distractions in the form of stories, training, progression, cutscenes and more. Cricket 22's career starts off pretty well, where you feel like you're playing a full-fledged game mode. You start off with a phone call to your agent, picking a club team, talking to your coach about your strengths and weakness, adjusting your skills, and finally you get into your first match. From that point on, your main goal is to perform and move on to the next level, from club cricket to domestic to international. The mode starts off with a lot of cutscenes and story elements, but they do dry up as you go along. Training mini-games are fun, in fact they're really well done, but no matter how well you craft mini-games, if you do the same thing for 100+ hours, it is going to get repetitive. You can maybe play through 2 career modes before you lose interest completely, which is a pretty long time. But the first time you play the mode, for the first 20 or so hours, it's actually incredibly addictive. And it becomes addictive once again after you reach the international level. You play against and with players you recognize in tournaments that you're familiar with. I mean, how can playing through a World Cup with your player ever be boring? But there's a time in between where you've lost the initial spark and you haven't reached the international level yet, where the game can start feeling sluggish and repetitive. Check out my Cricket 22 career mode review if you want more on the mode. I'll leave the link to the video in the description box below. Cricket 19's career mode is more of the same from previous games, but one thing I really love about it is the in-game progression of skills, which is really well done. This once again helps the mode feel like a game mode with actual progress. You do the usual career mode stuff, making your way to your national team all the way down from club cricket, but there's a complete lack of any new gameplay elements. It's almost a carbon copy of Ashes 17, and just like Ashes 17, gameplay is brilliant and engaging, but in a different way. With such solid gameplay, all they need to do is add elements outside the pitch, which they eventually did in 22, but 19 doesn't have any of those elements. No training drills, no cutscenes, no stories, which to be honest even 22 doesn't have. The fact that this is Big Ant Studios' 4th attempt at a career mode and they have literally given us the same mode for the 4th time is definitely the most frustrating part of it. I mean, these games come out at a higher price than most AAA games and they feel like a DLC or worse. But again, there's also the fact that Big Ant Studios themselves aren't the biggest developers out there. With limited resources and somewhat of a small budget, you can't really do all that much. But they probably could have done better than this. Starting from the bottom and going all the way to the top is a simple but effective foundation. The problem once again is beyond that, DBC 17 has no other elements. It's pretty much only on-field gameplay. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the on-field gameplay here. But when you have nothing to do other than that, it can feel pretty empty. Having a few cutscenes here and there can make it infinitely better, as evidenced by Cricket 22. I don't want to compare a cricket title to NBA again, they have such different budgets and resources and all. But in my opinion, NBA 2K games have the best career modes, and I think it's because they have somewhat of a story. Whereas Don Bradman Cricket 17 feels like a series of exhibition matches and your player being the only thing reminding you that this is in fact a career mode. The game has really strong gameplay mechanics, batting for your national side and scoring 100 in a thrilling chase or batting an entire day in a test match to take your team to a draw are as satisfying as you'd expect. These scenarios that depend on your performance are seen in every game, each time unique and different than the last time. Sometimes you need to be aggressive, reckless, other times you might have to block every single ball. Batting with the tail, for example, is one of my favorite things to do. Taking risks for the first 4 balls and then getting to the non-strikers end. This is not exciting when you're playing as the entire team in an exhibition match or something, but in career mode, it is nail-biting. This aspect remains fun for a long time. Just the sheer amount of different scenarios and challenges keep things fresh on the gameplay side of things. If you don't want to play for local club teams and grind your way through domestic cricket, you can start off with international, playing as a star cricketer, which is a nice addition. After the first 1 or 2 playthroughs, you really don't feel like playing for unknown club teams once again. One more thing I love is captaining your team. It is actually fun, especially in T20s, changing fields and bowling orders, and when it comes down to batting, it is actually even more fun. Changing your own batting order, promoting or depromoting yourself accordingly is something no one talks about, but it's the first thing I do when I make captain. But in the end, if you have played Don Bradman Cricket 14, there are no real noticeable differences here. And it's not all great either. Career mode has some strange problems, good players are left out, and teams like Zimbabwe make their way to the top of the rankings. But these are minor bugs and are pretty easy to look over. Once again, Ashes Cricket 2017 doesn't have any significant improvements to the mode. It irons out some of the bugs and problems of previous games, and they have done a good job. I didn't encounter any teams that don't even play test on top of the rankings, but there are some problems with AI players. Players who play club cricket with you never seem to make the jump to international cricket. Small things like players at the end of their careers can retire. It could make things better, but there's no such system in place here. It's just the same players who keep playing forever like immortals. The lack of any new features means you're playing a polished version of DBC 17's career mode with some new gameplay elements and players. The customization has gotten a little better with more options to batting stances and bowling actions, but it's still limited. If you're expecting something completely new, you will be disappointed. I think Cricket 22 does have the better career mode, and I think most of you will agree. On-field gameplay has always been pretty good, so it was only a matter of nailing down features outside the pitch, and Big Ant Studios after 5 attempts have somewhat done that. There's still so much that they can do, and hopefully with their next game they do just that. Add even more features and elements to the mode instead of, being satisfied with what they have done with Cricket 22 and keep the mode the same. Cricket 22 seems to have outdone the other games in many areas, at least in my opinion. If I had to rank all 4, it would be number 1 Cricket 22, 2 Ashes Cricket 2017, 3 Cricket 19 and 4 DBC 17. But this is all my opinion, of course. I am interested in how you all rank them. But yeah, for me Cricket 22 is the best among the 4. Well, that's it for today. This was a long video. If you're here even now, please let me know in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel for more content and also let me know what kind of videos you want to see in the future. But for today, that's it. Thanks for watching. Drop a like and have a great day wherever you are.